All right, happy Monday. Hope everybody's still awake. Haven't quite gone to sleep yet because we got some fun stuff to talk about. Twitter today has been a buzz. I think that yesterday when I tweeted something about Trey Lance and Josh Allen, I definitely wasn't the first one over the past year, 2 years to compare the development trajectories, potential development trajectory, I guess, in the case of Trey Lance between him and Josh Allen. But yesterday I brought it back up, and I noticed that it did spark some discussion in the Twitter sphere. And now I think I should talk about it on YouTube. How usable is the Trey Lance Josh Allen model? There's the Bills quarterback. Now, he's a former 49ers fan, and he wears number 17 now for the Buffalo Bills. So I think it's fitting that there's number 17 sitting right next to me, except in 49ers fashion. But urban legend has it that Kyle Shanahan decided that he wanted somebody like Trey Lance, maybe not Trey Lance per se, but somebody like Trey Lance. When the Bills came into State Farm Stadium, the makeshift home of the 49ers back in December of 2020, and just handed it to the 49ers, kicked their ass, and Josh Allen threw for 300 plus, hardly an incompletion. His mobility was obviously on display, not just downfield, but within the backfield, right? He was rolling out, moving around in the pocket, physical tank, 240 pounds, really made the 49ers feel it. He threw some of those out patterns like, it was just a flick of the wrist and that ball was out there. And Kyle Shanahan saw up close what prodigious physical ability at the quarterback position could do to his own defense. And Kyle Shanahan said, well, I want prodigious physical ability going the other direction. I want it for my own team. And then obviously a few months later, he traded up to number 3 in the draft, and then he picked Trey Lance. So you see Lance and you see Josh Allen photographed together. And, ever since that day in Arizona when the 49ers technically hosted Buffalo, we wonder if that was something that, sparked an idea in Kyle Shanahan's mind. I think it actually goes back a whole lot sooner than that. I think it goes back to Kyle Shanahan's time growing up under his dad, Mike Shanahan, who coached Steve Young and John Elway, and obviously had the combination of great running ability and precision pocket passing with both of those quarterbacks. I think the idealized Shanahan quarterback is somebody who can do both. And I think that Shanahan sees moldable clay in Trey Lance to be able to get him to that level of being able to do both. But I digress, because today I just want to focus specifically on the Josh Allen developmental comparison, because as you all know, and as this spreadsheet right here has demonstrated, Trey Lance has not been particularly accurate in training camp this season. This is his first training camp. He's 65 of 130, 6 interceptions. That means a 50% completion rate and a 4.6% interception rate. Both of those numbers are, yes, relatively underwhelming if you don't have any context assigned to them. I personally think that this is exactly where I thought Trey Lance would be this year, because I see an inexperienced young quarterback. He's 22 years old, and I expected volatility early on. But it's gotten a lot of people doing some hand wringing, right? They see a 50% completion rate and they see an interception rate of nearly 5%. And they're like, oh my God, this guy's not Joe Montana immediately as a 22-year-old out of North Dakota State. For some reason, I expected him to be Joe Montana immediately. I expected him to be Tom Brady immediately. I don't know why people thought that. I have my theories, but that's not the point of this video. The bottom line is that people are really worried about Trey Lance and his accuracy. And to that, you respond by saying that quarterbacks have to develop. That's just a thing in the NFL. And then you want to look at development comps so that you could feel a little bit better about Trey Lance moving forward. Which trajectory can he take? And one of the most popular comps that has emerged, and this is something that we talked about right after the draft based on Trey Lance's profile, and we can talk about right now since the numbers might resemble something that I'll point out in a few minutes. One of the most popular comps has been Josh Allen. So how usable is the Josh Allen Trey Lance model? Well, let's take a look at where Josh Allen was his rookie season. Open up Pro Football Reference, make it a little bit bigger for all of you, and let's look through every individual row. In 2018, as a rookie, after being picked in the first round out of Wyoming. And I have to mention that Josh Allen comes from the Central Valley, Fireball, California. 559, that's my home area. Always have to shout out to that. Josh Allen, 320 pass attempts, 52.8% completion rate, and an interception rate of nearly 4%, 3.8%. So none of those numbers were good. If you want some context, you really need to keep your interception rate at under 2.5% as a quarterback, preferably under 2%. Josh Allen was way over that. So we saw high INT rate, low completion percentage. If you like the TD to interception ratio, I don't think that's a great stat since it really limits the sample size, but it was negative for Josh Allen, right? 12 interceptions, 10 touchdowns. So we talk about the trajectory of Josh Allen. We see that he started with a very high interception rate and a low completion percentage. And then we see that he progressed from 2018 to 2019 to 2020, where he was net nearly 70%. He got seismic at that point, right? I mean, 70% completion rate, that's excellent. He went from inaccurate to very accurate with only a 1.7% interception rate. So I mentioned you try to get it under 2%. Josh Allen did just that by year 3. And by the way, this year 3 is when he happened to play the 49ers, when he happened to take it to them at State Farm Stadium in Arizona. That's where Kyle Shanahan saw it firsthand. So Shanahan saw the idealized product firsthand in that Monday Night Football game. 69% completion percentage, 1.7% interception rate. All the other advanced stats were good. If you like quarterback rating, 107.2, QBR, excellent, 76.6. Josh Allen entered a turbocharged state in that 2020 season. So what does this mean for Trey Lance? Does Trey Lance and can Trey Lance use the Josh Allen model as something to emulate? Is this something that we can reasonably expect Trey Lance to continue along, to follow? Because right now, Trey Lance is at 50% in training camp. The regular season is going to start. He's probably not going to be a 65 to 70% passer based on what we've seen so far in camp. Maybe he'll shock us all. Maybe, there will be massive progress in between now and September 11th. But I think in all likelihood, Trey Lance is going to start in the 50s. Trey Lance is probably going to start with a slightly higher interception rate than the 49ers would like. That's what camp is suggesting. Last year, whatever camp suggested actually also was true, because Trey Lance did struggle in those move the ball periods. It was like 48% last year. So he's better in the move the ball periods already this season. I think that will perpetuate itself, but I still think there's long work to do. Well, when you compare the Josh Allen trajectory with the Trey Lance trajectory, and you try to determine whether or not these two are legitimately parable, if you can make a comparison between the two, I think that you have to start with the fact that Josh Allen was extremely raw coming out of college. Remember, he came from this small town in the Central Valley, Fireball, California, farming town. His dad's a farmer. This place has maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people. He wasn't playing big time high school football. Let's put it that way. In fact, before the 49ers played the Bills in 2020, I swung by Fireball. I paid his high school a visit. I got to see Josh Allen's retired number, and I did notice that Josh Allen's high school gym was named after his grandpa. Yes, that's right. Josh Allen's high school gym was named after Josh Allen's grandfather. That shows you the size of the town, right? Josh Allen's family pretty much ran this place, at least athletically. He had the genes in that family where his grandpa had the high school basketball gym named after him, and then Josh Allen had his number retired on the football field. But it was such a small town and such low-level competition, at least according to college evaluators, that nearby Fresno State, less than an hour away, didn't even offer Josh Allen a scholarship. He totally flew under their radar. So Josh didn't go to Fresno State, which would have been a D1 FBS school, right? They didn't offer him a scholarship. Obviously felt disrespected by that. Went to Reedley College, just south of Fresno. That's a junior college. Played his ball there before Wyoming offered him a scholarship, and he would go to Wyoming of the Mountain West a little bit later on. So Josh Allen ended up playing football from Wyoming, not for hometown Fresno State, as was his dream. Played a few seasons at Wyoming with a completion percentage not much better than 50%, and threw 649 pass attempts there. That's when the Bills drafted him in the first round of the 2018 draft. So at the time, the Bills were roundly, I think, criticized by a lot of people who didn't believe in potential quarterback development. They thought that Josh Allen would be stuck as an inaccurate passer. He wasn't polished enough in college. He was way too raw, and there was no way that he would justify a first-round draft pick in 2018. But lo and behold, we see the statistics here. For at least a season, it appeared that the naysayers would be correct about Josh Allen. He had that high interception rate and that low completion rate. Whatever he was doing in college, it seemed to translate to the NFL in that first year. He was inaccurate, he was athletic, but he wasn't able to package it all together to be an efficient quarterback. But over the course of time, and that was exactly 3 years, Josh Allen turned into a Pro Bowl caliber QB. Well, so we talk about him being raw, right? We talk about 649 career pass attempts. Trey Lance had 318 career pass attempts. So Trey Lance had half the pass attempts of Josh Allen above the high school level entering the NFL. Allen also had JC pass attempts at Reedley College that aren't counted in this 649 pass total. Trey Lance, though, had only 318 in North Dakota State. And on top of the fact that he had only 318 pass attempts, the vast majority of these, 318 minus 30, in fact, came in 2019. The 30 extra passes came in one game in 2020. It was during the weird COVID spring season for North Dakota State. So almost all of Trey Lance's very limited pass attempts came in 2019. Then he didn't play aside from one game throughout all of 2020. And then he was the 49ers backup quarterback who started 2 games in 2021. And now he's QB1 again here in 2022. So we said that Josh Allen was raw coming out of college and he's improved a lot in the NFL. Well, Trey Lance is twice as raw right now coming out of college. And I would say probably even more so because he wasn't a multi-year starter at North Dakota State. He was a 1-year starter at a lower level than Josh Allen played in college, threw half the passes that Josh Allen threw in college, and then had COVID just wreck his college career, created a gap between then and being drafted by the 49ers. Now, Josh Allen started immediately in Buffalo. Trey Lance didn't start immediately for the 49ers, so that added a whole other buffer year, and it probably ended up being a good thing that Trey Lance didn't have to start last year because he chipped his finger in the final preseason game. But I say all of this to bring it back to the moldable clay theory. The moldable clay theory certainly worked for Josh Allen, but it took a while for it to materialize. For Trey Lance, I think when you look at this, 649 for Allen, 318 for Lance, the moldable clay theory might also still be in play, and it might take maybe even longer to materialize. But therein lies a big difference. The 49ers aren't the Bills. The Bills in 2018 were still building. They're still trying to get to that playoff level. The 49ers already are at the playoff level. Obviously, they came off of an NFC championship game. So the 49ers inherently believe that the talent around Trey Lance, whether, this is a fair assumption or not, but this is what they believe. They believe that the talent around Trey Lance can help develop and raise him into the player or something that approximates the player that they believe he has the potential to become sooner rather than later. And even if the 49ers believe that even if it does take Trey Lance a year, 2 or 3 to develop the accuracy that, is something like what Josh Allen rode into stardom, even if it takes a while, even if there are growing pains, the 49ers believe that they have the roster around Trey Lance defensively with the running game and on special teams to perpetuate their current team success, even while they break in a new quarterback. Are the 49ers correct? I don't know. That's why this is so gripping, right? Nobody knows. But that's why this is drawing so much interest, because you rarely see a ready-made team that was, a play away from making it to the Super Bowl last year, that was a play away from winning the Super Bowl just a couple years ago. You rarely see a team loaded with that kind of talent try to take this big of a swing with a raw and unproven quarterback. But that's exactly what the 49ers are doing. In a way, it's unprecedented in NFL history because, again, when the Bills did this with Josh Allen, they weren't coming off 2 AFC championship game appearances and a Super Bowl appearance over the previous 3 seasons. So the 49ers are doing something radical. They're doing something different. And that's why this is getting so much attention. So we don't know the answer to it, but that's what the 49ers are doing. And all we can do is appraise potentially comparable cases, right, as we move forward to see what might actually happen. But, one of the overarching truths here is that even experienced college QBs don't come ready-made into the NFL. So we can, zero in on Trey Lance and Josh Allen and talk about how they didn't have all that much experience in college and how, Josh Allen at least has developed into a really competent quarterback. Josh Allen is not the only potential comp for Trey Lance. In fact, you have other guys. We talk about Allen's 52.8% completion rate, but what about Steve Young's 52.2% rookie completion rate? In fact, Steve Young was under 60% for his first 4 years in the league. Let me read you Steve Young's completion rates from 1985 to 1988 with Tampa Bay and then as a backup for the 49ers. 52.2%, as you see up on your screen, 53.7% year 2, 53.6% year 3, 53.5% year 4. It wasn't until 1989 that Steve Young completed 70% of his passes, and that was only through 92 pass attempts behind Joe Montana. 1990, only 62 pass attempts behind Joe Montana. Young finally took over as a starter in 1991, which was his 7th year in the league, and he completed 65% of his passes. A massive jump over his initial time with Tampa Bay and his initial time with the 49ers. So Steve Young is a quarterback who didn't come ready-made to pocket pass in the NFL. Guess who also struggled in his first year? Peyton Manning, 56.7% completion rate his first year and a record 28 interceptions. That is a 4.9% interception rate, which was just horrific for Peyton Manning in his first season. He jumped to a 62% completion rate in his second year, along with a massive reduction in interception rate, 2.8% his second year. So this whole idea that Josh Allen is the only quarterback that has tangibly improved over the course of his time in the NFL is just not true. Even experienced college quarterbacks like Steve Young, like Peyton Manning, who played a long time at Tennessee, have demonstrated significant improvement in the NFL. So it is possible for Trey Lance, and Josh Allen is not the only comp. There's a common theme for young quarterbacks, and that is what I just was going through right now. Low completion rates paired with high interception rates. And that's exactly what we're seeing 10 days into camp from Trey Lance. So it shouldn't be surprising for a raw young quarterback to have a low completion rate paired with that high INT rate. But it's something that you would hope, and the 49ers would hope that they can fix moving forward. And that's where Lance's mental makeup comes in. His mental makeup will ultimately be a massive determinant in whether or not he emulates positive models of the past. So can Trey Lance emulate Josh Allen, who went from the 52% to where he is now? Can he emulate somebody like Steve Young, who Mike Shanahan developed and coached into his best seasons? I wouldn't say developed. I would say Mike Holmgren and Bill Walsh developed Steve Young. But Young's best seasons came under Mike Shanahan when Shanahan was the offensive coordinator of the 49ers from 92 to 94. So can Trey Lance develop the same kind of pocket passing precision to go along with the running as Steve Young? And, I just tossed Peyton Manning in there. He's a different type of quarterback, but can Trey Lance up the completion percentage and reduce the interception rate in the same way that Peyton Manning did over this course of the year, over the course of his career? Well, I think that will all be determined, but what's going on up here and here too. We know that Trey Lance is smart, but it's the determination, it's the heart, it's the willingness to go through the mundane aspects of the game of football. If you talk to any great player, they will emphasize that football and success at the NFL level is about a whole lot more than just being able to perform under the bright lights and the flash bulbs of the big games and the national television and the big money. It's about being able to sit in the meeting room, sit there with your playbook for hours on end when nobody's watching. It's about being able to handle and master monotony, because monotony is where the great separate themselves from the pretenders. The ability to figure out where a guy's going to be on every single step of his route, to place the ball 2 inches better, where it could just get outside the outstretched arms of the really talented Hall of Fame defensive back who has, an amazing wingspan and amazing range because he's been studying film. So who can master the monotony better than their great competitor who's also getting paid a lot of money? That is the person who's going to improve at the NFL level. And that's why mental makeup is so important. And for this, I have to open Jeff Howe's article from the other day because Jeff Howe wrote about Trey Lance and he got a great quote from John Lynch. And this is a thought that we've heard not only from Lynch, but we've heard it from Kyle Shanahan over the course of the years. They really believe in what Trey Lance is made of because they recognize that there will be growing pains in his development. They recognize that the accuracy won't be there from day one. They recognize that it's the theory of moldable clay, just like it was with Josh Allen, just like it was with a guy like Steve Young, just like it was for almost any quarterback in the NFL, right? You don't expect these guys to be ready-made day one. Some guys will be further along than others, but if you're going to mold the clay, you need to have quality clay to mold, right? You need to have a quarterback who's going to absorb teaching, who's going to put in the work, who's going to be able to master the monotony. And that's why when I went to this article from Jeff Howe and I saw this quote from John Lynch, I was just like, wow, the 49ers, this summarizes everything. The 49ers truly, truly believe that Trey Lance has what it takes to make the kind of progress that they need. And here's the quote. I'm going to pop this open on the screen. You guys should check. I'm going to share this link too in a little bit. This is an article that you have to read if you're into the details of Trey Lance's development. He is everything we thought he was and a little bit more, John Lynch said. Quarterbacks in this league who are playing for the first time, they go through their struggles too. So we're fully aware that those are going to come. But we believe enough in his makeup, what he brings to the table in terms of abilities, but also just his mental makeup, who you are as a person, how you are going to work through adversity. We believe in Trey and all those things. Boom. That may be the most important line that you hear from the 49ers regarding Trey Lance's skill set. Everybody's going to talk about the arm. Everybody's going to talk about the legs. Everybody's going to talk about the mechanics, the fundamentals, the accuracy of deep outs and accuracy of the quick game and the speed of the release and the loop and the release. Everybody can talk about all those things. But at the end of the day, those are all variables that the past other quarterback cases have demonstrated that can be changed. Accuracy can improve over time. Field awareness can improve over time. Game readiness can improve over time. It's reflected in the statistics. Josh Allen is no longer this quarterback. Steve Young is no longer this quarterback. Peyton Manning wasn't this quarterback for very long. So those things can all change. But how do they change? They change through the mental makeup, assuming the physical tools are already there. And the mental makeup is what the 49ers believe is special about Trey Lance. Again, I'm not saying that they're right. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm saying that this is what they believe. And they believe that that mental makeup is there for Trey Lance to make the accuracy improvement, to make the general improvement as a quarterback that has already happened with other QBs at the NFL level. The question is, did they find the right person to be able to emulate some of those past models, which is why we bring it back to Josh Allen. We bring it back to this excellent graphic that Mike made. It was awesome. Let's admire that for a while. Trey Lance and the Josh Allen model. What's funny is that a lot of people, I think have gotten their models mixed up because I think the 49ers might be operating with 2 different models here, maybe even more. But Kyle Shanahan has explicitly mentioned the Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith model, right? Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith for a season in Kansas City before taking over the job in 2018. The 49ers definitely use this model as far as using Jimmy Garoppolo as the veteran quarterback in 2021 before handing the keys to Trey Lance in 2022. But I firmly believe that Josh Allen is a closer comparison for year 2 onward. I think that after the whole year 1, let's let him sit, get him prepared. I don't think there is all too much in common between Trey Lance and Patrick Mahomes. I think that you have more in common between Lance, who's bigger than Mahomes. In a way, he's just more of a physical player, right? And his background, as far as Trey Lance's background goes, that there is a pro style background there. Mahomes at Texas Tech, I mean, he's playing a lot of air raid stuff. He had mastered the whole run it around, street ball, gunslinger thing. I mean, he's a magician, right? I think in the case of Trey Lance, the 49ers saw somebody who came out of North Dakota State, which already had a lot of pro style concepts embedded in their offense. And Kyle Shanahan saw somebody that he could mold into his own system. So he wanted to approach the transition like the Chiefs handled the transition between Mahomes and Smith. But I really do think that Josh Allen is, from a physical, standpoint, and from a inexperience standpoint, from an inaccuracy to accuracy standpoint, I think that's a better comparison for Trey Lance when you look at it that way. Because Mahomes, I mean, he had started he had played for, I think, 4 years at Texas Tech. He had amassed a lot of college snaps. And we always go back to this for Trey Lance. He hasn't amassed a lot of college snaps, 318 college pass attempts with a long layoff before the NFL. And I think really the closest comparison you could find is Josh Allen. And it doesn't mean it's going to follow that path, but it does mean that the 49ers believe that there is similar moldable clay here. The moldable clay theory is what is, being put to the test with this Trey Lance development. And it means that people shouldn't freak out about individual training camp practices. What we should do is track them diligently. We should, say, hey, Trey Lance is missing these throws. Trey Lance is inaccurate here. What does that mean? Well, it means that he's still young. He's 22, that his mechanics haven't fully caught up to, his physical prowess and his field processing ability. And it means the 49ers have a heck of a development job to do. Well, then when you talk about the development job, in what context is that development job working? Well, it's working within the context of a really good 49ers roster. Can that 49ers roster absorb this development process and continue winning games, even if Trey Lance isn't who Trey Lance is going to be in a year or two or three? And the 49ers have bet the answer on that is yes. They've said that we have the system, we have the talent, we have the defense, we have the running game. Hell, we even have the offensive line, they're saying. I'm skeptical about that. But they're saying that we have the infrastructure around Trey Lance to give him the runway to develop, just like Josh Allen developed in Buffalo. But the difference for us, the 49ers say, is that we can still go out and compete for a Super Bowl even while the early stages of this development are happening. You can be skeptical about this. I mean, this is unprecedented. A Super Bowl ready roster has rarely, if ever, done something like this. But even if you're skeptical, I am reporting what the 49ers think about this particular situation with Trey Lance. And whether or not it works, well, that's going to be the fun part, right? We get to sit back, get our popcorn, and see if everything goes the way that they want it to. And right now, I can't say that it's diverged too far from what the 49ers thought it would be at. People freaking out that Trey Lance isn't completing 70% of his passes, probably haven't been paying attention, probably aren't really familiar with his background, with his limited experience, with the fact that he's gotten such limited playing time since the 2019 season. So growing pains are expected for Trey Lance. But the good news is that even experienced college QBs had growing pains, and moldable clay is what this is all about. All right, I'm going to answer a few questions. It's a beautiful Monday night. Welcome everybody to the channel. If this is your first time here, if you got drawn in by that nice Josh Allen, Trey Lance screenshot, that was cool. I mean, not screenshot, thumbnail. Thumbnail is a better word than screenshot. Mike did a great job with that. And the number 17 jersey just happens to be an accident right next to me. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in. I saw like 300 comments. I haven't read anything. So questions better come here toward the end because I'm not going to scroll up through 300 comments. I don't see any questions. I see a bunch of arguing about Jimmy Garoppolo. I see Cam Newton in here. I mean, I guys got to give me something to work with. Out of like 300 comments, I thought there'd be some questions. But whatever. At least I don't have to talk as much. I hope that you guys enjoyed the show. I will give you 10 more seconds to ask some good questions. Okay, good. Finally, we got something from John here. John C. What would be a successful individual season for Trey Lance? Winning a lot of games, not getting in the way for the 49ers this year, developing while the team continues winning with its strong roster. If you want stats, 55% to 60%, somewhere around there. Keep the mistakes in check. Generate an efficient offense. I'm not about the simple stats, but that's all we can kind of track during training camp. So generating an efficient offense, being the point man for an efficient offense, even if it's not as efficient as what they had last year, as long as the trajectory moves upward, as long as he finishes the season better than he started, I would say that's a successful season for Lance, given the prior models. This is a good question. What did I have for dinner? I had taqueria Cancun in San Francisco. Carne asada super burrito. It was really good. I think that's the best burrito in the world. 19th and Mission in San Francisco. I've written an article about it. I mean, why don't we do that today? There's a lot of you guys here. This will be good. With a lot of you guys in tow. This I wrote during COVID because we needed to write something like this during COVID. Sports were shut down. I wrote about burritos, the best burritos, and this is the one I had today. This is from Taqueria Cancun and 19th and Mission. Really flaky tortilla. They put the tortilla on the stove top to give it that flakiness, and I think it puts it over the top. We had our other Athletic Bay Area staff members take pictures of their own burritos and, say which place was best. And, I picked a lot of these places. This was my little pet project. But I mean, if you need burrito recommendations, go to this story in Athletic, and this is the sucker that I got today. All right, we have some questions finally, some good, intelligent questions. I appreciate you guys. Didn't mean to give you a hard time, but sometimes, have to get the best out of the viewers. Hey, David, has Trey's quick release improved since the beginning of training camp? Well, it's only been 10 practices since the beginning of training camp, and they don't really work, so much on release fundamentals and stuff during camp. That's off-season work. I think Lance's release got a lot quicker and his motion, tightened up over the course of the off-season when he did all that work. I don't think it's improved over the 10 practices of the training camp, but it's been documented. People have done the biomechanical studies of Trey Lance's release, and it is quicker. It's objectively quicker now than it was before. And again, with Trey, and Steve Young has said this too, it's about the mechanical aspect of his game catching up to the cerebral and the physical part of his game. We know that he's got the last two things down pat, but the mechanics are still a little bit inconsistent. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm a throwing guru. I'm not going to, sit here and say this is, he's got to dip this and he's got to do this better, all that. But I do know that the mechanics are inconsistent because that's why the throws have been inconsistent, especially on the out patterns. The accuracy just hasn't been there. So we know Trey has the physical capability of making those throws because he has made them, but he needs to make them when the bullets are flying in live action consistently, more consistently than he has so far. That's why we track the completion percentage, because my eye test corroborates what the completion percentage says. He's still missing too many of those throws, but it's okay because this is where the 49ers thought he'd be, roughly around here in this stage of his development. Hell yeah, smash that like button. Appreciate you, man. Even if the 49ers are a run-first team, they still need a quarterback who could deliver the ball efficiently. You can't just run and run and run into a brick wall in the NFL. You have to be able to execute the short game to loosen up the box. A certain level of passing efficiency is needed. Do I think Trey Lance can get there? I think so, personally. Do the 49ers think that? They obviously think so. That's why they gave him the keys this year. Do I think he's there this very moment? I think it's good they still have a month of training camp to really get some of this stuff ironed out. And again, they believe in the mental makeup of Trey Lance, the person, to be able to fight through adversity and get better through this adversity so that he is the guy that can be the complement to a greater offensive machine. You play point in that offense. You're not the only player on that offense, but you certainly are the most important one at the quarterback position. In my unbiased opinion, is Trey Lance solid and the 49ers defense that damn good? I think the 49ers defense is really good. I think they have a track record of being really good. I think the jury's still out on Trey Lance. As you know, back in January 2021, I said the 49ers should pick Trey Lance, way ahead of almost everybody, basically. But my one caveat was this guy is going to need time to develop. It's rough. It's raw. And has he developed to the point where he can lead he's getting the keys to a Ferrari. This is a Ferrari that the 49ers have. Is he ready to drive this Ferrari to its Super Bowl conclusion? We will see. I think, I wouldn't have recommended the 49ers to draft him if I didn't think that he had the potential and the likelihood of developing into what he could be, right? But I don't know if that's going to happen. That's it's just a belief right now. Now it's got to happen. The 49ers believe the same thing. They believe it's going to happen. They wouldn't have traded that draft capital for Trey Lance if they didn't believe it, but it actually has to materialize at this point moving forward. I don't play fantasy football for the question there, so I think I'm going to have to abstain from that one. I'm excited. I'm always excited to go to the first game. I've been grinding out at camp. Today I had the day off. By the way, speaking of that, it's a day off, but I'm still working hard. So why don't you sub to The Athletic, sub to the channel, follow along on Twitter. All right, guys. It is a day off, so I need to recharge the batteries right now. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you enjoyed the look at the burrito. And of course, the great look, courtesy Mike, at Trey Lance and Josh Allen. Everybody take care. Have a good Monday night. I think it's a fair comp to make. Whether or not Trey follows that model remains to be seen, but the 49ers certainly believe in him. Appreciate you all. We'll see you next time.